Let's cross live now to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who is in Leeds for us. Hey, good stuff, Darren. And that's where Sir Keir Starmer, and former Prime Minister Gordon Brown unveiled these plans earlier. Darren, there's quite a lot to unpack here. Let's start with the House of Lords stuff, if that's all right. Take it away.
Yeah, indeed, a blast from the past in many regards. Gordon Brown back on stage behind a Labour lectern today. As you say, he's been working on this report for the last 2 years. The most eye-catching initiative is that desire to see the House of Lords abolished altogether, to be replaced by an entirely elected chamber. Now, many people, including the Labour leader, have said that the House of Lords at the moment is essentially indefensible, i.e. it's bloated to over 800 members and be linked with cronyism. Lots of MPs have decided to pack the chamber with some of their mates who may have done favours with them or for them in the past. In saying that, is a fully elected chamber the way that many would want to go? You'd lose the expertise of many members who've actually done some pretty big jobs in the past. And as Tony Blair found out, when you try to do these things, they're a lot easier said than done in many regards. Patrick, he wants to get rid of all the hereditary peers. There's still dozens and dozens of them left in the chamber. But Sir Keir Starmer is, he says, determined to do this, and in his first term as Labour leader. It's part of a wider package, as you say, of trying to restore what he calls is a kind of more democratic system where power is not concentrated in Westminster. 50,000 civil servant jobs moving outside of London, more powers, as you say, to the devolved regions of England and to the nations as well. MPs not being allowed to have second jobs. His argument is that levelling up all sounds great, that the Northern Powerhouse all sounds great, but in the end, if local communities can't make these decisions, then bad decisions are made. And he was making the point that even though he backed Remain in the Brexit referendum, he would argue that Brexit's about taking back control, but that doesn't necessarily mean just to Parliament at Westminster. It should be to local communities too. As I say, though, the proof is in the pudding. Politicians talk about constitutional reform all the time. Doing it is a hell of a lot harder than making speeches about it in Leeds. So we'll wait and see. But of course, it all depends on whether he gets into power in the first place.
Well, it does, absolutely. Just something that I thought maybe went under the radar slightly, potentially quite a shrewd political move from Sir Keir Starmer, actually, was to have Gordon Brown facilitating it as the calls for Scottish independence certainly grow louder, whether or not that's reflected massively in the polls. The calls are growing louder. Gordon Brown very staunchly in favour of keeping the union together. Himself, of course, the Scot, himself now proposing anyway more devolved powers to the various union countries. This could be quite a clever way of actually keeping the UK together, could it not?
Yeah, I mean, that's been talked about in the past. Clearly one of the desires and one of the driving forces for Scottish independence, or indeed Welsh nationalism, or you could say the same maybe about Northern Ireland as well, and the different regions, is that people feel that Westminster in London is a long way away, that it's not necessarily terribly representative of what they would like to see in their local communities. Though there is a counter-argument, Patrick, suggesting that actually one of the ways that Labour tried to stymie, particularly Scottish independence, in the 1990s was with the introduction of the Scottish Parliament, but that it's actually driven an independence movement, that, you know, the desire for some powers led to the desire for more and more. So it's quite difficult to work out. But I think this is an interesting political move by Labour. You know, the House of Lords isn't necessarily roundly popular in the country. I'm not sure it's going to win lots of votes, but at least allows them to set out an argument that when the Lords gets themselves into trouble again, or whether people say there's not enough power in my local community, they can say, well, you know what, we've actually looked into this and we've got a 155-page report. Go and read it and see what you think. It is at least some policy, some flesh on the bones, of which there's been criticism that there's not been enough of that from this Labour leader thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. At least we're hearing something. It means that we can either agree or disagree with something that Keir Starmer is doing. Darren, thank you very much. Darren McCaffrey there from Leeds for us now.